Good morning and welcome to the January board meeting of the MTA.
My name is Charlton D'Souza from Passengers United, and I want to talk about a bill that was in Albany in March 12, 2018. The bill number was S7936, and that was the bedbug bill that would notify passengers throughout this region, throughout the MTA region, if a bedbug is discovered on the subway and bus. My state senator, Leroy Comrie, and me, and also Assemblyman William Colton in Brooklyn, had that bill in the Assembly and the Senate, but the MTA's legal department knocked the bill down. Why did they do that? And as you can see from yesterday's incident that happened at 71st Street Continental, there is a serious problem with bedbugs. The homeless are coming on the trains overnight. They're bringing 7 garbage bags. The police are actually getting bed bugs on them when they're trying to get them off the system. The bed bugs are going inside the police cars, cruisers, even inside the districts. This is a huge problem. So again, the chairman, Pat Foy, you need to talk to the city of New York and have the caseworkers down there to deal with the bed bug situation. And the bill needs to be passed. You guys need to come out with an aggressive steam cleaning program using hot steam to clean the buses, the trains, because it is a problem. And I guarantee you, sooner or later, it's going to start spreading on the Long Island Railroad and Metro North, because all it takes is one employee or a passenger to sit down on a wooden bench in a subway station. That is where the source of the bedbug eggs are. So if you get rid of all the wooden benches in every subway station and Metro North or Long Island Railroad commuter station, you will kind of solve that problem somewhat. But we need to take preventative measures on training cleaning employees, training police officers, because they're the first responders that have to interact, and they get bed bugs on them. It's not right. So Pat Foy, you need to talk to the governor, declare an emergency.
Please conclude your remarks.
And we need more than 500 cops. We need 1,000 cops down underground. People are getting assaulted,
Please
robbed.
conclude your remarks.
It's not right. Thank you.
My name is Jason Anthony, Vice President of Passengers United, a regional commuter organization that represents commuters from New York City, Long Island, Westchester, and beyond. This morning, I'm going to speak about the Queens bus redesign. This plan is a complete disaster. It doesn't give the benefits to the commuters, and we're going to lose express bus service off peaks, especially during the midday, evenings, and weekends. I hope that Greg and Andy consider doing a redraft of this plan and go to the small communities like Southeast Queens, Northeast Queens, Jackson Heights, the Walkways, Walkway Beach, and get the sense of the commuters that use the regular buses like the Q53, for instance. Another thing, like my president mentioned, the bed bugs. Yesterday, we had an incident at Forest Hill, 71st Avenue, in the tower, having bed bugs. Since when the New York City Transit has bed bugs? And we found the other day a deceased person on a D train at Columbus Circle. That person had bed bugs. So when we're gonna have fumigation on subway cars, all the passenger facilities and employee facilities to avoid this incident? And I should recommend raising the time limit for the speakers to 5 minutes like New Jersey Transit does. And if a person or a group is going to speak regarding the same topic, limit the first 2 speakers to 5 minutes and the rest of the speakers of 2 minutes. So that should be a suggestion to be considered. And I'll see you guys next month.
We're beginning the new year 2020 with a bold vision to improve the MTA and how we operate as an agency. We remain laser focused on our core mission to keep the region moving. Last year ended on a high note when it comes to on-time performance across the entire system, all the while completing major repairs and projects through the Fast Forward, Long Island Forward, and Metro North Way Ahead plans. 2019 brought the best subway performance in 6 years. December was the 7th consecutive month with weekday OTP above 80%, and running times improved on nearly every non-shuttle line compared to a year ago. Preliminary full-year data also shows subway ridership slightly higher in 2019 for both weekdays and weekends. And after several years of decreases, average weekday subway ridership increased year over year for 6 consecutive months and exceeded 6 million riders on 2 weekdays in November. I'll note, according to APTA, that New York City Transit was one of the few transit agencies in the country with a ridership increase. The entire team at New York City Transit has done a great job getting the subways back to an acceptable level of service. The Subway Action Plan played a key role in that, and we'll be posting a report online this morning that more fully details the accomplishments of the Subway Action Plan. The findings show improvements on every metric, including a 40% decrease in weekday delays. Phase 2 of the plan sought to stabilize the system. Phase 1 of the plan sought to stabilize the system, while Phase 2 focused on developing and institutionalizing the successes of the Subway Action Plan so that we can sustain progress going forward. We've incorporated management practices from these emergency measures into long-term operations. To name one example, under Phase 1 of the Subway Action Plan, New York City Transit tripled the rate at which it replaced old jointed rail, installing 55 miles of continuous welded rail from 2017 to 2019. That resulted in a 55% decrease in track-related major incidents during the same period, from more than 15 per month in 2017 to fewer than 7 per month in 2019. Phase 2 saw the introduction of 3 rail grinders in addition running through the system to remove rail imperfections and prevent defects, all in the goal of reducing delays and improving customer service. Long Island Railroad and Metro-North have seen similar tangible benefits from their Long Island Railroad Forward and Metro-North Way Ahead programs. For the Long Island Railroad, OTP for the year hit a 3-year high of 92.4% in 2019, with 44% fewer train cancellations. And Metro-North's on-time performance rose to 94.4% overall in 2019, recording 55% fewer train cancellations. Thanks to Kathy and Phil and their teams for their leadership, and Andy, Sally Labrera, and their teams at New York City Transit, and of course all our hardworking frontline employees. We will continue to maintain a close focus on operational performance for the coming year while prioritizing transformation and reform. On that note, I'd like to welcome Mario Pelican, who's down sitting next to Craig Cipriano, to his first full board meeting. As Chief Operating Officer, Mario will play a key role in ensuring our agencies maintain safe, reliable operations and continue to deliver excellent service. Alongside Mario, our new Chief Transformation Officer, Anthony McCord, to my right, and our new Chief Innovation Officer, Mark Dowd, are working hard to implement transformation and foster innovation at this agency, charting the course to fundamentally change the way we do business to become the modern 21st century transit system this region deserves. It's a new day at the MTA, and the old way of doing business won't work. I'd also like to acknowledge 3 new members of the senior team. Paul Fama, who's here with us today and who will serve as Chief People Officer. Paul comes to the MTA with 25 years of experience from General Electric as a senior leader in human resources. Later this month, we'll also have Raf Portnoy join as our new Chief Technology Officer. Raf has previously worked as Chief Information Officer at several leading not-for-profits, including most recently the Anti-Defamation League and Safe Horizons, and also Kavesh Ayer, Chief Procurement Officer, who has over 20 years of experience in strategic contracts management and procurement at GE and Alstom in the United States and abroad. Please join me in welcoming these new members of the executive team as we continue to take meaningful steps to build a new MTA. Our new leaders will help ensure successful progress on transformation and enacting lasting reform for this agency. Now, a quick moment on other priorities for the coming year. Capital plan approval and RFQ. The reforms implemented through transformation will go a long way towards supporting the on-time execution of our historic $51.5 billion capital plan under Jano Libra's leadership, allowing us to better deliver on capital commitments through the newly consolidated construction and development organization. We're making a historic investment in infrastructure, from signal modernization projects to new buses and trains to East Side access and Penn Station access, to ensure the MTA is prepared to meet the needs of this region in the 21st century and beyond. To that end, we began the year with good news that the capital plan was deemed approved on schedule for the first time since 1981. We're not wasting any time setting it in motion. On the first business day of the new year, just a day after the capital plan was deemed approved by the CPRB Capital Program Review Board, we issued an RFQ to begin work on adding 70 new accessible stations to the subway system. That more than meets our goals to ensure that no rider is ever more than 2 stations away from an accessible station. The effort shows just how serious we are about making the system accessible to all New Yorkers and ensuring this capital program is accomplished on time. You'll hear a presentation from Jano later this morning on the 2015 capital plan and an update on the plans for the current 2020 to 24 capital program as well. We thank Governor Cuomo and the state legislature for their support of the capital plan and our agencies. The governor's recently announced executive budget accounts for billions in operating aid to support the MTA and a $3 billion state contribution to the 2020 capital plan, which is dedicated to and will help fund accessibility projects. We're hopeful the city will match that so that we can continue to deliver on our critical accessibility capital commitments in the new capital plan. Grand Central Terminal. Our ongoing work at Grand Central Terminal is a prime example of the efficiencies and value we expect with transformation. Last week, we unveiled the integrated 42nd Street connection project along the 42nd Street corridor. 8 separate rehabilitation projects, including a major overhaul of the 42nd Street shuttle, were merged into one comprehensive plan under unitary leadership. By consolidating this work with the new MTA Construction and Development Organization, we're able to cut costs and expedite timelines. Already, the team has been able to shave $10 million off these projects in 13 months off the original schedule. Penn Station and the Empire Station complex for a minute. To help ease congestion and create a more environmentally friendly region, we need to draw people out of their cars and onto mass transit. To do that, we need to provide a transit system that New Yorkers can be proud of. A revitalized Penn Station will be key in winning over these customers. We have a long history of partnering with key regional and government stakeholders to deliver on big and bold ideas for the region, and the same will be true for the Empire Station complex. Governor Cuomo's bold plan to reimagine Penn Station in a project led by Empire State Development in partnership with the MTA, Amtrak, and New Jersey Transit. The Empire Station complex builds on our current Penn Station improvement projects, such as the 33rd Street corridor, and goes even further, including a dramatic 40% expansion of track capacity at Penn to the south. That's 8 new tracks into Penn Station. If completed, the impact on the customer experience and train capacity will be extraordinary. Our commitment to pursuing bold new ideas extends to our buses as well. We want to build on the momentum we saw last year with the rollout of the successful 14th Street busway and automated bus lane enforcement, which was authorized in Albany. On the M14, the opening of the busway contributed to a 30% drop in travel time between 8th and 3rd Avenues on 14th Street. Trips that once took 10 minutes now just take slightly over 10. We look forward to continuing to work with our partners at the New York City Department of Transportation and the NYPD to add more transit priority corridors to further increase speeds. We're also pushing forward with our borough-by-borough bus network redesigns. It's time to make a holistic change to bring bus routes into the 21st century, and we're embracing the challenge of designing new bus lines that serve this city as it exists now, not the way that it was 100 years ago. And we're looking for your input every step of the way as part of our robust outreach and community engagement efforts to make it a success, as has been the case with each borough redesign. Lastly, I'm pleased to report that the Transit Workers Union Local 100 ratified the new contract earlier this month. We believe the contract is a win-win for our customers, taxpayers, and transit employees. This deal will help in our core mission to keep the region moving while ensuring our hardworking employees are fairly recognized. This board will consider the new contract later today. And with that, I'm going to take a motion to move into executive session to discuss matters which might imperil the public safety if disclosed pursuant to Section 105(1)A and matters regarding collective bargaining pursuant to 105(1)(e) of the New York State Public Officers Law. I'll move it. Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. While the board was in executive session, the board discussed security matters and a number of collective bargaining agreements. First, we'll consider and vote on the TWU Local 100 contract. I'd like to note that Commissioner Zuckerman, who was at committee on Tuesday and unfortunately on short notice had to be out of town, voted as a member of the Finance Committee for the Local 100 contract and authorized me to say that if he were here, he would have voted to approve the TWU contract. May I have a motion to approve the agreement between MTA New York City Transit, MAPSTOA, MTA Bus Company, and the Transport Workers Union Local 100? Second. Discussion. Commissioner.
I said at the finance meeting, I've said on a regular basis, I've supported the settlement, and I vote to support the settlement. I do believe that and I've been saying this a number of times, that the process in terms of board being brought up to speed was a flawed process. And I've said that there's been a lot of discussion publicly about bargaining when I thought people should be bargaining at the table. And I think that I'm very happy that wisdom prevailed and a wise and good settlement was reached. I've stated that I really think that it was inappropriate that the TWU put on their website on December 10th or December 9th the information, and the board just received information in terms of the specifics of the agreement. And I don't think that that is a wise process. I think that the public should have had more information, given that 40,000 workers had access to the agreement. So I'm hoping that, and I like to say that the agreement itself has lots of excellent items in it that everyone can see. Besides wages, there are lots of committees and collaborative efforts. And I mentioned in the Safety Committee today that I thought that it made sense that the parties adopt some of those collaborative labor management efforts on an MTA-wide basis. So I think there are lots of good things there. I think the process should be improved going forward. And I believe that the model of collaboration and complete disclosure is a good one, and it carries forward to the actual agreement, the actual specifics of the agreement, and the actual costing of the agreement.
May I have a motion to approve the following collective bargaining agreements? First, the agreement between MTA, Metro-North Railroad, and the Association of Commuter Rail Employees Division 1 Yardmasters. 2, the agreement between MTA, Metro-North Railroad, and the Association of Commuter Rail Employees Division 9. 3, the agreement between New York City Transit and the United Federation of Law Enforcement Officers. And 4, lastly, the agreement to implement specific economic provisions of the 2017 to 2021 District Council 37 City of New York Agreement for MTA Bridges and Tunnels employees represented by DC 37, ASME Local 165. Do I have a motion? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Motion carries. Let's move to the committees. We'll start with the Joint Railroad.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You didn't ask for an approval of the minutes yet.
Andrew,
A couple of corrections.
Then I'm going to, well, you can't move it, but points well taken. The minutes of the December 18th meeting have distributed to all members. Are there any corrections or admissions or omissions? If not, may I have a motion to approve the minutes? I move it. Second.
I do have a couple of corrections.
Please.
On page 5 and on 15,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Amy Paulin's name is misspelled, so just correct that and you're fine.
Chairman Paulin, let's make sure we get that right. And what was your other comment, Andrew? Okay, thank you. Motion, I move them. Second, all in favor? Abstentions, noes? Thank you. Dr. Metzger, we'll go to the committee business of the Joint Railroad, Metro-North Railroad, Long Island Railroad Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Metro-North Railroad Committee and the Long Island Railroad Committee met on Tuesday jointly, and we report the following. There are 2 competitive procurements this month totaling $74.6 million. The first procurement is for Long Island Railroad for $65.1 million. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
I second it. Any discussion?
I'd like to abstain from that vote.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Noes or abstentions? Back to you, Dr. Metzger.
The second procurement is for MTA construction and development for $9.5 million. The committee considered this, and we asked for additional information. The information was provided by JANO on Tuesday. Our specific request was to see the scope of work for this item. We wanted to be sure that Metro-North, as well as the existing residents of Penn Station, were included and not precluded in any way from access to the station. As you all know, Penn Station access will put Metro-North in Penn Station, which is a great benefit to the New Haven Line customers. In our vision, it would be possible and good if the Hudson Line station also ran to Penn Station. Amtrak does it now, but there are other things that need to be considered if this was to be expanded. Jano explained to it, showed us the scope. There's nothing that would prohibit future access from the Hudson Line. But we would need additional scopes of work for the line that actually gets from the Hudson Line through Spuyten Duyvil, through the Empire Tunnel, in order to affect this. So I'm talking a long-term planning effort, and I'm happy to say that we're going to be working on a scope, which we look forward to seeing. With that said, I move the Penn Station Master Plan, as it's called in your book, and I'd like a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Feinberg.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. The New York City Transit Committee met on Tuesday. I report the following. There's 1 competitive procurement from New York City Transit for $286.9 million. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
I second it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I'm sorry, which one is this again?
This is the, Commissioner Lacewell, this is the procurement that relates to the call center for Accessoride.
Okay, thank you. Chair, just to be clear, when it comes up, the reinsurance, capital-based reinsurance, capital markets-based, I will recuse on that. Thank
Got
you.
it.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you.
This concludes the New York's hours. This concludes the New York City Transit report.
Commissioner Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is one action item for board approval. The action item for approval authorizes FMTAC to undertake a capital markets-based reinsurance program, Linda, by expanding FMTAC's current traditional capital markets-based reinsurance to include a catastrophic bond-based reinsurance transaction. The committee recommends this action, and I move it.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Commissioner Lacewell abstaining. Good.
There is one non-competitive procurement in the amount of $93.4 million. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
Second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions or noes? Thank you.
There are 4 competitive procurements totaling $161.7 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second, any discussion?
Yes, on the asbestos removal agreement, one of the 3 vendors who will be approved is a member of the LIA, and I will recuse myself and abstain on this vote.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? And Commissioner Law abstains.
There are 2 ratifications this month totaling $28.2 million. The committee recommends these ratifications, and I move them.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Thank you.
There are 5 real estate action items this month described on pages 68 through 85 of the board book distributed for this meeting. The committee recommends these real estate items, and I move them.
Second, discussion? All in favor? Any opposed or abstentions?
This
Good.
concludes the Finance Committee report.
Commissioner Lacewell, as I understand it, your committee has no items to present.
Correct.
Good. Thank you.
We heard earlier from the chair about the how on the first business day after the capital program became effective, we put out an RFQ for contractors to do the first 20-plus stations of the ADA program of the 70 that have been identified for the 20 to 24 program. Just to give you a sense of the scale of what we're undertaking. The last 5 years, and this is not just a matter of the prior capital program, but the amount of work actually accomplished in the last 5 years is about $32 billion. The work that we have going forward in front of us is roughly $55 billion of 20 to 24 program work, and another $12+ billion that remains from prior programs, 2015 to 19 prior programs, and Sandy and so on. So we are, at this point, we're going to have to do, and this number, by the way, includes rolling stock and bridges and tunnels as well. But I just need to understand and to convey something that sometimes gets misunderstood, which is that in the current capital program, the 15 to 19, the past capital program, the 15 to 19 program, based on where we are, 3.5 years since that program was adopted by the formally approved, we are roughly 75% done. If you exclude the 2 major projects that are waiting for full funding, which is 2nd Avenue Phase 2 and Penn Access, we're close to we're basically 80% done. And I just want to underscore that because there has been frequently talk like the MTA has not been able to execute on its capital programs. I don't believe that's the case. Nevertheless, obviously we have a tall hill to climb as we undertake the next program, and I wanted to tell you how we're going about it. Obviously, this slide underscores that we basically have to double the pace of our execution. This is based on commitments, not actual completion of work, because commitments are the right measure of progress. Not all work can be done because of the outage requirements and the logistics in the same time period. So, but we have to double the pace that we're executing on the program, as you can see before you. And as I said, as the chair emphasized, we've hit the ground running. We've got the ADA stations well underway. We have the Penn Station Access, which is a 20 to 24 project in the middle of procurement. We're expecting that procurement to be completed this year. And the Phase 2 scope for third track, the so-called LIRR expansion program, is also underway. So we have really hit the ground running on 20 to 24. But in the meantime, because it will take a little while for some of the preliminary design, obviously it's design build, so there's a lot less design, but some of the preliminary design and the whole procurement process for the 20 to 24 projects to ramp up, we are focusing on the remaining work, and I want to take you through exactly what we're expecting to accomplish from the work that remains to be done from prior capital programs in 2020, in the calendar 2020. We have, first of all, in the first quarter, we're going to do $1 billion of commitments. That starts with the signal modernizations on the 8th Avenue line that Andy and Pete Tomlin have talked about. A huge undertaking that's going to for the first time use axle counters, really transformational for the pace of the execution of modern signaling. But in addition to that, we're also bundling. This is what we've targeted as the strategy for getting a lot more work done, which is we are bundling extra work with taking advantage of the outages that will be required to do CBTC modern signaling on the 8th Avenue line. There's another $200 million of work that we have targeted to be done on the same outages, and we've accelerated that work to take advantage of that. There's going to be the ADA accessibility at Livonia on the Canarsie line. That's a major elevator project. The procurement was underway even before the 70 station commitment was made, so that's going forward in the first quarter. And significantly, the Harlem River Lift Bridge, which carries literally every train that comes out of Grand Central for Metro North, all of that work is going to be committed in this first quarter. In the second quarter, I think we're going to pick up the pace even further, $2.5 billion of commitments. The second phase of the Penn Station Carter project, 4 ADA accessibility station projects, including Tremont, which was accelerated from to be in the 15 to 19 program, and 2 the double station complex at 149th Street Grand Concourse. We know how important that is, and also. We're continuing, sometimes gets lost in the sauce, but even as we're doing the ADA, the new ADA projects, we're doing major elevator and escalator improvements at all kinds of stations, replacing elevators and escalators that have reached their useful life for whatever reason, need to be replaced, and that's happening at 11 stations. We are bundling transit stations with Metro North stations. Again, a little bit of novelty in that, trying to take advantage of some of the geography to get more work done across traditional agency lines. And we're going to be making the commitments on Elmont, which is obviously a high priority project that this board acted on this session as well. Third quarter, you're going to see more ADA projects coming online from the 15 to 19 program, the whole 14th Street complex, which is 3 separate stations, 3 other stations all at once. The 7 line, we are doing major structural repairs and renewals on the 7 line at a whole mess of 7 separate stations. This is, a strategic bundling effort. There is critical infrastructure work at many of them. The netting is getting done on a separate project, but is going to be carefully coordinated. And it is the incredible improvement of service on that line has to be met with improvements to make the stations capable of handling the increased loads that they are attracting as that part of Queens continues to develop. One that I think we're all interested in is the last of the tube, the underwater tunnel repairs from the Sandy era, Rutgers tube, which carries the F train, is going to be done. We're doing a very aggressively scheduled, what I call, it's the L train light. You're going to do tracks. You're going to do all the cabling work. The tunnel was not as damaged as the Canarsie tunnel, and we're going to move that quick because we have to get it in between the completion of the L train and when the CBTC work begins on the 8th Avenue line. So it's very important that we get that work done, and we are accelerating it like crazy. And in the fourth quarter, $1.3 billion is projected. And it's some, similar stuff, getting new station accessibility work done. We are hurtling ahead, despite some of the litigation, occasionally with sort of NIMBY-ish overtones on ADA. We're going to get these stations done. And we are also determined to start picking up the pace on substations. You need to know that we frequently need real estate cooperation from our friends in city government. And this is the Canal Street substation. It's central to our ability to run more service on the 8th Avenue line. We do not yet have a real estate deal because, without getting into too many of the details, that we simply are not willing to pay for land that's underground that has no development value under the city's zoning resolution as if it were a development site with 5 FAR in the middle of Tribeca. So we cannot put the public's money to waste in this way, and we need to come to a deal with the city because we're going to have to do this repetitively. So the real estate issues associated with what the plan that's been mapped out for more service with with better signals. It needs to be supported by a real estate strategy with our friends in city government that will allow us to move those projects a heck of a lot more quickly. Overall, when we get to the end of this year, we're going to be 90% done with all of the prior work that this capital program will inherit, which the new C&D organization is going to hack away at first to make sure that while we're getting ready for all the 2024 work to be ready, we're eliminating everything that remains. So I'm excited about this. I think this is going to be, again, get us moving in the right direction. We put together a great team. I have to give a shout out to my colleagues, the agency presidents. We've started the consolidation of some of the capital program expertise throughout the agency into the new C&D organization. It's always complicated. There are always HR type issues. My colleagues have been great, and we're in the middle of that. But we're also adding new people across from outside the agency, folks who are coming from Chicago Transit Authority and New Jersey Transit, who are have reached their pensionable age, and they're looking for new challenges. So we're really growing the I think the organization to have the expertise to execute on this much more quickly. And I also have to thank the team at headquarters who identified some slots that were for transformation to help us get off the ground. And I really want to credit them for a lot of it. So one final thought is that we've been doing a ton of outreach. To do this program, we're going to need a lot more contractor capacity than. And we've been doing outreach not just to the associations, to the GCA and other organizations, but I've actually met with like a dozen plus companies that are major builders but don't do a ton of work for the MTA. They don't operate in the New York region for whatever reason. And we're really trying to get the word out that we have a big capital program. We're operating, we're paying faster, we're doing a lot, we're making ourselves, I think, a more attractive client for contractors. And there's an opportunity to get in on the ground floor of what's going to be a very large volume of work in years to come. So we're making a special effort on that. The whole team went over to the GCA executive committee meeting last week and presented. The comment that we got was from a fellow who's worked on the third track project, and he said, to his colleagues, everything they're saying about how they pay faster, cut change orders, deliver on schedule, review submittals and turn it around, it's all true. We've experienced it. So we're getting a little credibility, but we're going to need a lot more participation from contractors to get this done. With that, I welcome questions.
Any questions for Jano? Commissioner Schwartz.
Thank you, Jano. My compliments to you and your team, not only in terms of the work you're doing, getting the previous capital program finished, but you have a very robust and large new capital program to move underway. Can you just give us a quick status update on what you think your challenges are in terms of being able to recruit new contractors out there in the industry, and how that's going? Because obviously that's one of the things one of our goals of the board in the MTA was to expand or widen the universe of contractors to be bidding on these capital projects.
Well, I mean, Commissioner Schwartz, as you know, we started this back with the cost containment working group that you and Commissioner Reckler and Commissioner Trottenberg participated on. You know, we really need to there are a lot of first-class builders in New York who elect not to bid MTA work or not to bid a lot of it. And what are the things that we hear from them? The dispute resolution process was unfair. The paperwork was excessive. We required all paperwork to be resubmitted every time a company bids. I mean, in the real world, where all you do is update your, credit card number on online for anything you want to buy or any transaction you want to have in the real world, that seemed crazy. And the things I mentioned earlier: how do we process change orders? How do we review submittals? How quick are we to respond to contractor concerns? And there are a lot of, and each of those actions that was contemplated in the cost containment working group I think is making a dent in contractor willingness to participate, and the size of the program is making progress. But it's no secret that the Barman issue is still on people's minds, and we are working through that. I understand, but my principal issue is that we just need to go out and tell the story much more widely. We still operate, I think that the governor calls it the transportation industrial complex. It's a relatively small group of contractors who are accustomed to dealing with us. We have to go to the rest of the country, to Europe, to Asia, and tell our story, because this volume of work is going to require more capacity. And that's the principal thing that I'm thinking about a lot, in addition to getting the program going.
I think your idea of creating these outreach teams to go out there and promote the capital program is a great idea. And I think as robust as you can make that is creating as many teams as possible. I'm sure the board, I know I, as chair of finance, would support that. And I believe if there's ways of funding those outreach teams through the individual capital projects or the capital program, we should do that. And not be shy about being as proactive and as aggressive and robust as we can to go out there, whether it's across America, throughout Europe, or around the world, to find new qualified contractors to bid on these projects. It'll result in probably getting better pricing and getting more projects done on time and on budget. So whatever I can, I'm sure other board members can do to support that initiative and effort, happy to do so.
And I just have to thank you very much for that, because that's a huge issue. One thing that I probably underemphasized in this is the role of our in-house forces in executing the capital program. Whenever we're bundling work, we're always looking at the in-house work, where we have ready, capable people we don't need to go through a whole contracting process to do work that is available on outages that need to be done for whatever reason for other projects. So we are also looking to take advantage of that capacity to deliver the entire program, as we always say, faster, better, and cheaper. They're there, they're capable, and they're very much part of this story.
Commissioner Tessitore.
So just to piggyback on that, Jana, we appreciate that, and we would encourage the agency to remember that we need some headcount to help in that role. We haven't hired in the engineering side to support these contractors and all this work that's still out there. So if we can keep that on our radar, that we've had many retirements, and to keep things in check and to continue to build up our workforce is going to support all these programs even more so.
Commissioner.
Jana, you mentioned briefly that you need the cooperation of New York City Planning. Have you reached out to them? Have they reached out to us? Or
It's not city planning. It's various agencies who own real estate that we need an easement below grade for this Canal Street substation, for example. It's under Parks Department property. It's a triangle in the middle of Canal Street. So it's somewhere between. It's mostly 18 feet underground. We need to come to a business deal about what we're going to pay for that easement. And I proposed to the city that we start to develop a methodology of doing this repetitively.
Right.
If you want to run more trains, you need more power, you need more substations. We're going to have to do this again and again. Having every one of these be a one-off negotiation is a recipe for disaster.
that's my point. So do you go directly to city planning, or you go to the deputy mayor's office and just say, let's do this together? It shouldn't be one off for each of the agencies.
Yeah, the deputy mayor's office has been involved. For your former colleague, Polly Trottenberg, has stepped in kind of, I think, as the leader of trying to bring this to closure, and I'm counting on her to help us get there.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Metzger.
Jenna, you have your plate full. Couple things. I also think you've demonstrated a track record to bring things in on budget and on schedule. Your bundling works. A lot of the pre-planning that you do works. You've managed to get new contractors certified for us so that we have additional opportunities. So the track record is there, and I think you're going to be successful with this. We need you to be. I, too, feel a little bit grated when people claim that we haven't finished our previous capital plans. the agencies don't just throw project ideas on the wall and see what sticks. They figure out how much work they can get done in a 5-year plan. If we get a 5-year plan approved more than a year late, we know going in that we can't make everything happen in that time frame. You've set a really terrific goal of trying to clear that whole backlog, which this next year may be able to do, and keep going on the plan that we have now. You report on what we've gotten accomplished at CPOC. I think it would be good if, generally it comes towards the end of the meeting and we don't pay real focus attention to it. I think we should actually focus maybe 4 times a year on where we have left to go. That's my first statement. My second one is the work groups, the cost containment work group in particular, had a profound impact in helping us get where we are now and moving forward. If you need help that the work groups can provide, please let us know, because I think the whole board is ready and willing to participate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, Jano, I echo Commissioner Metzger. You do have a plate full, to say the least. I'm just hopeful that in each of these projects, you will have really good communication with users of the various places that are under construction, so that riders and/or motorists and whoever know the best way to get to their destinations, and there's clear alternative means of getting there, and certainly willing to work with you on how that reads. But I think that's an important piece of the total picture.
Well, I mean, I have to say, one, under Andy's leadership, the communication, obviously, the customer communications has really grown in amount and also in effectiveness. So Sarah Meyer is obviously our leader on that, and she's going to be leading that agency-wide in the transformation. So number one. Number two, I think we've done a good job on a couple of the projects that we're kind of breaking new ground on. This the 42nd Street connection that has its own communication module, much more robust communication strategy, dealing with the local business organizations to try to get the word out about what we're doing, what the schedule is, why we're doing the work, so people don't feel like they're having their lives disrupted for no reason, and making sure the contractor participates in that. We've done it well on Third Track. We have to do a much more aggressive communication strategy. One piece of good news is that we are, together with Sarah and others, we've moved quickly to try to configure the digital screens so that we can deliver line-specific and station-specific messaging, which has, for software reasons, not been available. Even though we got all the digital screens out, we need more. We need more capacity in terms of tailored communications. That is coming, and that will be important.
I think the digital screens are a great addition. I have noticed in some instances that they cycle, so if you didn't happen to be looking at it at the correct moment, you might actually miss the message about what's happening. So as long as we have multiple screens and so many of them devoted to passenger information, maybe ones that are vital information like a service change ought to stay on while the others cycle.
Jano, thanks for the good report. I want to make an acknowledgement on behalf of the board. Our colleague Andy Byford is departing the MTA. We all respect his decision and wish him well in his next chapters. Andy has been instrumental in many of the successes at the MTA and New York City Transit over the last 2 years, and we thank him for his service. Among his achievements was to build a strong team at Transit who will continue the work of the Subway Action Plan, Fast Forward, which has resulted in tremendous benefits for our customers. We talked about that earlier in the meeting at the Transit Committee meeting on Tuesday with Commissioner Feinberg, and today in terms of on-time performance, fewer delays, and increases in ridership. And Andy, on behalf of millions of customers, tens of thousands of employees at the MTA and the board, we thank you for your service. Commissioner Samuelson.
I've been in a lot of board meetings. I don't think I've ever really spoken up for a transit boss that's resigning. But I do want to say, Andy, it's been, 2 years. It's been 2 years, right? So you're the first guy that came to town, or woman that came to town for that matter, that in my view, and probably in the view of the other unions, in fact, had a real compassion for transit workers, MTA workers, and the work that we do. And you are the first one that I ever saw bother to walk into the rooms of pain downstairs on the first floor where transit workers get incessantly disciplined, to go person to person and say, why are you here? Why are you here? I mean, you brought a compassion to a level of compassion to this job that'll be difficult to replace, and we appreciate the openness that you brought to the job. And my first instinct when somebody, one of the reporters, asked me what I thought, my first instinct was to say, well, Andy Byford wasn't a liar, which is a pretty interesting first instinct on my part. And perhaps I'm jaded a bit after 26 or 27 years in this New York City Transit Authority. But good luck wherever you go, and I'm sure the other union folks around the table have a similar feeling. And don't worry, the TWU will keep this system together. It'll survive. Thanks.
As a representative of riders, there's not even time to thank you, Andy, for what you have done for the riding public. The Fast Forward plan, the Safe Seconds plan, the attention to detail, the signage improvements, the group station managers, the fabulous team that you've put together. I just don't, I am heartbroken. I wish you the best, obviously. Whoever gets you next is a very lucky place indeed, and I hope your team will continue to carry on the great progress that you have made for the riding public. For the first time in ages, people have just come up to me and say, things are really better. That Byford is fabulous, and I hope we don't lose him. And I said, I hope we don't too. So I'm getting endless emails and texts now saying, how did this happen? Just wish you the best, and thanks for everything you did for New York.
Sorry, Mr. Lynn, Commissioner Lynn.
Yeah, I just want to say I have a sense of extraordinary sadness to see you go, Andy. The thing that most struck me during all of these meetings is how everybody felt that you listened to what they said and understood what they said. So many public speakers would get up and say that they heard you speak and you listened to what they said. Your constant conversation about the workers and the workforce and your support of the workforce. I believe from what I've heard, you were extraordinarily important, had an extraordinarily important impact in the collective bargaining and helping the parties reach a wise settlement. So I feel that I've been in the public sector many, many years, and in the 6 months I've known you, I've learned so much about how people need to work with the workforce. You are not just an incredible runner of trains and operator of trains. You are an extraordinary person and human being in your dealing with people. So I will miss you terribly.
Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, I'd like to associate myself with the remarks of Brother Samuelson regarding your trustworthiness and your honesty in dealing with the people. But my point I want to make, I mean, you have a right to write your own resignation letter. I mean, that's your business. But for the rest of us here on the board, the elements of compassion that he brought up, and I would say the sensitivity and communication skills you transmitted to everyone, and the genuine feelings that we felt you had for the workforce, that's more than just feel-good stuff. That's an element of efficiency, and if we want efficiency going forward, that's the sort of management we need. That we need to know as workers that you're listening to us, people are listening to us, and if we don't, that's not going to make the place more efficient. You can have all the time clocks you want. You can have people's, you can do it by iris or whatever you want to do, and it really won't. That's not efficiency. It's what people are doing when they're here that is efficiency. So in that regard, we come not to praise you but to bury you, and good luck, man.
All right,
Chair, may I just make just one very brief comment, Chair?
Please, Andy, of course.
Only to say, I'd like to thank you, Chair Foy, Chair Ferrer, and Chair Loter before him, for the opportunity you've given me. I'd like to say a big thank you to Governor Cuomo for giving me this opportunity, but also to Governor Cuomo and the legislature for having the courage to pass congestion pricing and also to get the funds that Jano now I know will deliver the capital plan that is unprecedented, and the Governor deserves huge credit for that. Chair Feinberg, I'd also like to thank you for your support and leadership at the Transit Committee while I've been there. Just two other thank yous, really. Number one, to New Yorkers for bearing with me, putting up with me, giving me this wonderful opportunity to live in this amazing place. This really is the absolute pinnacle of any transit professional's career. You know, it doesn't get much bigger than New York City Transit, and it's been my honor and privilege to serve New Yorkers. But also, finally, to my executive team, the broader management team, but ultimately, to John's point, the 50,000 men and women of transit. I think in some ways I'll miss them the most. I call them diamonds. They're just wonderful, decent, hardworking human beings, and I'll always be proud to have stood shoulder to shoulder with them. Thank you for everything.
Thank you for those comments. Can I have a motion to adjourn? I move it. Second. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Next board meeting is Wednesday, February 26th. Thank you.